Donald Trump initiated an investigation into U.S. China trade practices, highlighting potential penalties on Chinese goods tied to the country's role in the fentanyl crisis. He explained that any tariffs imposed would be justified by China's involvement in sending fentanyl to Mexico and Canada. Trump made it clear that China was not the only country at fault, noting that other nations were also guilty of similar trade abuses. He also pointed to trade issues with the European Union, emphasizing the significant trade deficit the U.S. has with the EU. Trump stated that the U.S. has a $350 billion trade deficit with the EU, accusing the bloc of treating the U.S. unfairly and signaling that tariffs could be imposed on their goods as well. In line with these statements, the Trump administration introduced the America First trade policy, which aimed to address what it considered unfair trade practices while bolstering the U.S. economy and national security. The policy proposed 25% tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico starting February 1st, as well as higher tariffs on certain Chinese and European imports. These actions were part of a larger strategy to combat trade deficits, currency manipulation, and subsidies. The announcement of these tariffs prompted significant international reactions. Many countries began seeking new trade agreements to counter growing U.S. protectionism. For instance, the European Union signed multiple deals and resumed negotiations with various nations, including a notable trade agreement with the Mercosur bloc and an updated free trade deal with Mexico. These efforts aim to diversify trade partnerships and reduce reliance on U.S. markets. Domestically, businesses voiced concerns about the economic disruptions that could result from the proposed tariffs. At the World Economic Forum in Davos, Trump reiterated his intent to impose tariffs as a means to boost the U.S. economy and tax foreign-made products. With the possibility of new tariffs being enacted as early as the following month, exporters faced heightened uncertainty. Industries like manufacturing and agriculture, which heavily rely on global supply chains, expressed particular apprehension about the potential impact on their competitiveness. In Canada, officials expressed confidence in their ability to avoid the proposed 25% tariffs by emphasizing the country's critical energy resources, which are vital to the U.S. economy. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau vowed to counter the tariffs, highlighting the importance of Canada's role in U.S. energy security. Ontario Premier Doug Ford described the tariffs as a declaration of war and announced retaliatory measures, including boycotting American-made alcohol and targeting goods from Republican-controlled regions. Meanwhile, companies in the automotive industry, such as Volkswagen, warned of the significant economic repercussions these tariffs could bring. Volkswagen, which operates a major manufacturing facility in Puebla, Mexico, cautioned that such measures would negatively affect American consumers and the global automotive sector, advocating for free and fair trade instead. China, on the other hand, began quietly escalating its retaliatory measures in response to U.S. trade actions. These countermeasures, which largely went unnoticed by mainstream media, included banning the export of rare earth elements, essential for technology and defense manufacturing, to the U.S. Additionally, China reduced its oil imports from the U.S. and imposed tariffs exceeding 74.9% on specific American products. These actions significantly escalated the trade conflict and expanded their scope to include imports from the European Union, Japan, and Taiwan. In response, the Biden administration announced substantial tariff increases on Chinese imports, aimed at addressing what it viewed as unfair trade practices. Among these measures was a sharp rise in tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, increasing from 25% to a staggering 100% by late 2024. The justification for this increase was to protect American manufacturers from Chinese competitors benefiting from heavy government subsidies. By making Chinese imports less attractive, the U.S. hoped to create a level playing field for domestic EV producers like Tesla and Rivian. Tariffs on lithium-ion batteries, a critical component of electric vehicles, also rose from 7.5% to 25%. This move sought to encourage domestic battery production and reduce dependence on Chinese suppliers, who dominate the global market for key materials like lithium, cobalt, and nickel. Similarly, tariffs on semiconductors imported from China were set to double from 25% to 50% by 2025. This measure aimed to boost domestic semiconductor manufacturing while addressing vulnerabilities in the U.S. technology supply chain. Other sectors were not spared either. Medical products, including syringes, needles, and personal protective equipment, saw significant tariff hikes. Duties on syringes and needles, previously tariff-free, increased to 50% by 2024, while tariffs on certain respirators and face masks rose to 25%. These measures, impacting approximately $18 billion worth of Chinese imports, were introduced in response to supply chain vulnerabilities exposed during the COVID-19 pandemic. In the renewable energy sector, tariffs on solar cells imported from China doubled to 50%, reflecting a push to support U.S. clean energy businesses and expand domestic solar manufacturing. Tariffs on critical minerals like natural graphite and permanent magnets were also set to increase to 25% by 2026, as these materials are essential for technologies like wind turbines and electric vehicle motors. The European Union also introduced measures to counter China's trade practices. Beginning in late 2024, the EU implemented tariffs ranging from 7.8% to 45.3% on Chinese electric vehicles. This came after investigations revealed that subsidies to Chinese EV manufacturers were harming European producers. The EU also imposed anti-dumping tariffs on Chinese imports of certain sweeteners to protect its industries. Japan and Taiwan adopted broader economic policies to counter China's influence. Japan focused on enhancing its industrial policies and supply chain resilience, particularly in sectors like semiconductors and critical minerals, while Taiwan worked to diversify its economic partnerships and reduce reliance on China. These escalating trade measures underscore the intensifying global competition among major economies in critical industrial and technological sectors. As nations strive to protect their economic interests, they also face challenges tied to globalization and economic interdependence. China responded further by announcing provisional anti-dumping tariffs on imports of polyacetyl copolymers, a specialized industrial plastic, from the U.S., signaling its continued pushback against what it perceives as economic hostility. China's decision to impose tariffs on polyacetyl copolymers from the United States, the European Union, Japan, and Taiwan reflects its broader strategy to protect domestic industries amid growing global trade tensions. The United States faces the highest tariffs, ranging from 57.2% to 74.9%, based on China's assessment of significant dumping practices by American firms. These high tariffs will create considerable challenges for U.S. exporters to remain competitive in the Chinese market. Major companies like DuPont and traditionally supply high-performance materials for critical polymers, including automotive and consumer electronics manufacturing in China. Such high tariffs may drive U.S. exporters out of the Chinese market entirely, forcing Chinese importers to seek alternative suppliers or increase reliance on domestic production. This aligns with the ongoing trade tensions between China and the U.S., where both nations have implemented tariffs on key industrial goods. EU exporters, meanwhile, face a tariff rate of 42%, which, while significant, is less prohibitive compared to the rates for U.S. companies. This indicates that dumping by EU firms was considered less impactful on the Chinese market. Leading European producers, such as BASF and Tiona GmbH, a subsidiary of Celanese, are major suppliers of polyacetyl copolymers to China, catering to industries requiring high-performance materials like precision manufacturing for automotive and industrial machinery. The 42% tariff will notably raise costs for EU exporters, reducing their competitiveness. However, given their established reputations and the quality of their products, these firms may still find limited opportunities in high-value market segments. Japanese exporters are subject to a tariff rate of 43.7%, slightly higher than the EU rate, reflecting their competitive pricing and strong presence in the Chinese market. Japan's geographic proximity to China and its historical trade ties have made it a key supplier of engineering plastics, including polyacetyl copolymers. Major companies like Mitsubishi Engineering Plastics and Polyplastics Company Limited specialize in high-performance materials for automotive, medical, and electronic applications. The new tariffs are expected to disrupt established supply chains, especially in automotive manufacturing, where Japanese materials are widely used for components like gears and fuel system parts. However, Japanese firms' focus on innovation and specialized applications may allow them to retain some market share despite higher costs. Taiwanese exporters face the lowest tariff rate among the affected regions, set at 32.6%. This suggests that Chinese authorities found less evidence of aggressive pricing or market penetration from Taiwanese firms compared to the U.S., EU, and Japan. Taiwan's strong petrochemical and plastics industry, led by companies like Formosa Plastics Group and Changchun Plastics Company Limited, produces polyacetyl copolymers for applications in electronics and industrial machinery. While the tariff will increase costs for Taiwanese exporters, the relatively lower rate may allow them to maintain a portion of their market share in China, particularly in niche applications or among price-sensitive buyers. Polyacetyl copolymers, also known as polyoxymethylene, POM, are high-performance engineering thermoplastics valued for their exceptional mechanical properties, including high strength, rigidity, and thermal resistance. These characteristics make POM an ideal substitute for metals like copper, aluminum, and zinc, providing manufacturers with cost-effective and performance-enhancing solutions across various industries. In the automotive sector, POM's low friction coefficient and wear resistance make it suitable for components such as gears, bearings, and fuel system parts. Its dimensional stability ensures reliability under thermal stress and mechanical loads, enhancing vehicle performance. Additionally, its resistance to fuels and lubricants makes it ideal for under-the-hood applications. In the electronics industry, POM's electrical insulating properties and dimensional stability under varying environmental conditions make it valuable for manufacturing connectors, switches, and housings for consumer electronics. Its low moisture absorption ensures consistent performance in humid environments, maintaining the reliability of electronic devices. In medical technology, POM addresses the need for high-strength, durable components by offering stiffness, toughness, and lubricity across a broad range of temperatures and chemical exposures. Its high purity, low extractable characteristics, and compliance with FDA standards make it ideal for medical applications, such as dry powder inhalers, insulin syringes, and electric toothbrushes. In industrial applications, POM's mechanical strength, low friction, and chemical resistance make it suitable for durable and reliable components, such as pump parts, valve components, and conveyor belts. Its ability to withstand chemical exposure without degradation ensures longevity and reduces maintenance needs in industrial machinery. China's recent implementation of provisional anti-dumping duties on polyacetyl copolymers, ranging from 3.8% to 74.9%, is set to significantly alter the country's market for these materials. Between January and November 2024, China imported roughly 3 billion yuan, approximately $49 million, worth of polyacetyl copolymers from the United States, Japan, Taiwan, and Germany, highlighting its dependence on foreign suppliers for this critical material. The introduction of these tariffs is expected to trigger substantial changes in supply chain dynamics. Industries dependent on polyacetyl copolymers, such as automotive, electronics, and medical equipment manufacturing, may need to diversify their sourcing strategies. Businesses could seek alternative suppliers from countries not affected by the tariffs or increase investments in local production facilities. By promoting domestic manufacturing capabilities, China aims to reduce its reliance on foreign imports, especially from nations heavily impacted by the new duties. However, the tariffs are likely to increase the cost of imported polyacetyl copolymers, potentially raising prices for end products. Manufacturers may face higher material costs, which could be passed on to consumers in sectors like automotive and consumer electronics. This price adjustment may create ripple effects across industries reliant on cost-effective engineering plastics. Beyond economic impacts, the tariffs may further strain trade relationships between China and the affected exporting countries. This development comes amid broader trade tensions, with a high likelihood of retaliatory measures or renegotiations. Businesses operating in China will need to adapt strategically by diversifying supply chains, investing in local production, and potentially redesigning products to reduce reliance on these materials. China's Ministry of Commerce initiated a 9-month anti-dumping investigation in May 2024 to determine whether imports of polyacetyl copolymers were being sold at unfairly low prices, harming domestic producers. The investigation concluded with preliminary findings supporting the imposition of tariffs to counter perceived unfair trade practices. These measures underscore China's commitment to addressing trade imbalances and protecting domestic industries from the adverse effects of foreign dumping. This decision forms part of a broader strategy to strengthen domestic production capabilities and reduce dependence on foreign imports, particularly in high-demand sectors. By imposing these tariffs, China seeks to create a favorable environment for local manufacturers, encouraging investment and innovation within its industrial base. The move reflects the government's focus on economic self-reliance and its efforts to secure strategic materials for key industries, aligns with China's broader goals of enhancing industrial competitiveness in a global landscape marked by increasing trade tensions. The imposition of these tariffs is expected to lead to several outcomes. Prices for imported polyacetyl copolymers are likely to rise, increasing production costs for industries reliant on these materials. Domestic manufacturers stand to benefit from reduced competition as the tariffs make imported products less competitive, potentially boosting the local polyacetyl copolymer industry. Retaliatory measures from affected countries could escalate trade tensions and impact global markets. Importers in China may explore alternative sources or substitutes, including sourcing materials from countries not subject to tariffs or investing in research to develop alternative materials with similar properties. Overall, these tariffs signal China's intent to bolster domestic production while addressing concerns about foreign dumping. This development highlights the changing dynamics of global trade and underscores the need for businesses to adapt to shifting supply chain realities.